Good morning, everybody. It's Steve Sawyer. This is April 18th, 2019. And thanks to a friend of mine, Kurt Sierra, he asked me to make Closet Church about communion, about the Remembrance Supper. And he was so appropriate. And so that's what we're going to do. And it doesn't really matter if you're watching it live or whether you're watching at a later time. Everybody's schedule is different. We're going to have communion. And so whatever you have, that's why I put the pictures up. If you have coffee and a donut, milk and cookies, whatever you've got, water and crackers, doesn't make any difference. The reason I say that, good morning everybody, is because originally the Remembrance Supper was based on the history of when the Jewish people were slaves. And it became, predated Moses. When Jesus did the Remembrance Supper, it was to set us free from being spiritual slaves. So it has a new connotation, kind of like thinking Old Covenant and New Covenant, the Old Passover and the New Passover, or the Remembrance Supper. So it's easy to talk about the fact that the apostles were fighting for preferment and who got to sit at the best seat. And to the astonishment of everyone on earth and heaven, of course, Judas took the seat of preferment. And, Peter took the one at the very end, the least, and they argued and they fought. It's easy to talk about those things. It's easy to talk about the astonishment in their faces when they saw that Jesus actually fully intended, because he wanted to have a private meal with them, that he was going to, in the absence of a servant, as they not only argued over who got the best seat, they wondered, who's going to wash our feet? It's easy to talk about that, the astonishment, how awkward it was. But Jesus tried to teach in parables, always. He tried to show them an opportunity to understand yet again that the servant is never greater than the master, and if the master is willing to serve, doing something like washing the feet when they wouldn't even do it for themselves, it's a paradigm shift in the whole concept of how deep spiritual service can actually go. It's easy to talk about Judas and Jesus saying, what you've decided to do, go do quickly. And even when Jesus told the apostles, it's the one that's betrayed me is the one I just gave sop to. And because Judas was sitting where the place of preferment was, and the host always gave sop to the person in the place of preferment, they didn't think anything of it. It's easy to talk about all those things. It's easy to talk about the betrayal. Well, it's not easy to talk about that. Actually, none of it's easy to talk about, but compared to what I want to talk about now, it seemed appropriate to say it's easy to talk about those things because everything Jesus did was to set us free. And one of the easiest, most important ways in which we can be set free is to free us from the enslavement of tradition. The dogma, how many times do you bend and step? How many times do you turn around? How many times do you lift the cup up? All of these things that I think I've heard them called the dead chains of tradition. And this one thing, the Last Supper that Jesus wanted to have in private, nothing has become more standardized. Nothing has become more solidified as tradition. That which he gave his life to free us from, than the communion supper. So I posted pictures, as some of you may have seen. Coffee and donuts, water and crackers, beer and pretzel, wine and cheese, the sacrament wine and the bread. I happen to have a cup of coffee and a Brazil nut. Because the Remembrance Supper is a symbolic rendezvous. And it should be done by each of us in our own way. It should be done as a unique and individual experience between us and the loving Creator. So this isn't going to take long, but in your own way, as you are, offering your life into the service of others, offering your heart to be fully embraced into the love of God, which is loving unselfish service to others also, right? And many things. Thank you, Father, for everything you did. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for everything you're going to do, not only for us individually, but collectively, those of us who are joined together by a common thread of the freedom that you offered us to no longer be enslaved to traditional religious concepts, but the freedom to actually love and serve and experience life as a child of God. As I understood and do understand and believe, that means real time now or even later. If you do this with sincerity in your heart, the Master is really present. Thank you for the life you lived and everything you did to show us what life could really be like.